Alright guys, give me a minute. We'll get started in a second. I gotta it's weird. You gotta a little insider knowledge. You gotta go and edit the stream after you start it as opposed to during it. So give me a minute, please. Alright, give me a second. I just need to check the sound. And we would be good to go. Alright, I think we're good. We'll get started in a second. I don't know. Probably good. We'll get started right now. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, 15 Minutes a Game. Today we're doing something a little different. It's been kind of on my mind for a little bit to kind of rank all of the Disney Plus MCU shows. It's a specific caveat that lets me just review the shows that I've watched. Let me get specific. We'll be ranking all of the MCU TV shows that are currently streaming on Disney Plus. So that means I do not have to review shows that I haven't seen, like Cloak and Dagger, which is on Hulu, and The Runaways, which is on Hulu, although they take place within the MCU, allegedly, probably, almost definitely at this point. So we'll be looking at the shows that are below here. I think it's about 18 shows. So I'm going to be giving my thoughts on all of them and ranking them, if you can believe it, on this tier list. We'll be doing that. And of course, these are, of course, my opinions. So they are not written in stone unless that stone is my heart, in which case we are set on my opinions. I'm probably not going to change too much for a lot of these shows. If you want to chime in and say your piece about the show in the chat, I might read a few, so if you're interested in doing that, feel free to. Don't want it to be one-sided necessarily, although it is my list, so pretty one-sided. Alright, I think that's all the rules, so that makes sense. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to leave a like after subscribe, you can. 15 Minutes a Game, I mostly do video game walkthroughs. It's kind of my bread and butter, and it's what I have the most fun doing. So if you want to check those out, I'm usually live twice a week, and I upload most every weekday, usually the plan, at least 4 times a week. Let's say that. Let's keep me sticking to that. But anyways, today we're ranking all of the Disney Plus MCU TV shows. And we're getting started with the first show ever MCU related TV show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This came out in like 2013. I remember being very excited for this show because it was like post Avengers, and it was like the first like, oh, I can watch the MCU weekly. What a foreign concept at the time. How the show started was not that good. It was a very kind of monster of the week kind of show when it started. And ironically enough, this show ran parallel with the movies as they came out. So when Winter Soldier came out and it was real Shield was Hydra, the show kind of like had to reconstruct because Shield didn't exist anymore. And ironically, that's kind of when it started finding its own footing. So I think season 2 or so was really when it started, getting good. I think the characters are really good in this show, especially in the later seasons. Obviously, the highlights being Phil Coulson, who kind of really excels in a leading role, I think. He's kind of like he's like I almost want to say he's kind of like a Steve Carell Office type, where he's like, mostly kind of funny, but he can get really serious when he has to, and, he's got your back when he's got to. He's good in the show. And Daisy Johnson, I think Chloe Bennett's character, is also really good in the show. She's throughout the entire show. Her arc is really good. I would like to see her more in like the current MCU. I doubt it ever happens, but who knows, right? In terms of the show itself, the stories are, they're seasonal arcs usually. The stories are pretty good. It's not afraid to kind of step it out and be more of a comic book show and like look into like, not just like real world issues, but like mystical stuff. Like there was the show that introduced the Darkhold, which you saw in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It was the show that introduced Ghost Rider. It went kind of all over the place. The last seasons were like in space, so it was kind of like, it was a very comic booky show, and it was kind of like, I don't want to say fringe, but it was like a very niche show. It found its niche, and it did well at it. So if I had to rank this one, I would say it's a solid B. If it was the first season, it would be probably like a D or something. But like the show at its best, it's a good B. It's a good show to watch week by week. And if you haven't seen it yet, you might get some enjoyment out of it. They're not afraid to tackle some weird stuff, so it's pretty good. All right, next is Agent Carter. I remember watching this when it came out. I think it was like 2014, 2015, like that, and it's obviously centered around Agent Carter. It takes place in like the 40s, I want to say, which was not a great time for women who wanted to be in any kind of leadership role, especially in a government organization. So it was interesting in that sense. I think Haley Atwell, as I think what her name is, I think she does really good as a lead in that show. I feel like I don't remember too much about it, though. It's unfortunate. They had Jarvis in there, like human Jarvis, like the original Jarvis, Tony Stark's butler. Not Tony Stark, Anthony Stark, whatever his dad's name is, Howard Stark's butler. And he was pretty good. It was funny. I think it only lasted 2 seasons, but I don't remember having like a bad time with it. It's not like terribly memorable, but it'd be worth checking out if you haven't. The action, I don't remember. A lot of it I just don't remember about Agent Carter, but I don't remember having a bad time with it. I was definitely excited to watch it when it was coming on. So I'm going to say it's probably a B tier. If I watched it again, I would probably feel about the same. It's a little bit better than average, I think. If I had to say average would be C, I think it's a little better than average. It's right up there with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think. So solid B. I think that's fair. Daredevil, the first Netflix MCU show, and I think really the first show to have like a decent budget, I feel. Although it was pretty grounded. It's a pretty grounded show. It's a pretty gritty show. It's pretty dark. It was very dark at the time for the MCU, because the MCU didn't touch really a lot of bloody like nonsense. Not nonsense, but a lot of like gore and like realism, let's call it that. Daredevil was kind of the first one to introduce that. into the MCU, and I think a lot. I mean, a lot of you guys probably know about Daredevil. It's a very character driven show. It's dark and it's gritty, and it's kind of not afraid to like drag the hero through the mud. Um, in terms of action, the show is like incredibly good, incredibly well choreographed. A lot. I find myself wanting to go back and watch like a lot of the Daredevil like action scenes from like any season. The one shot action scenes are kind of like the highlight of Daredevil. And it's incredibly good. Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox plays him like incredibly well. It's just a layered hero, which I feel like isn't something we got a lot out of the MCU. Certainly not a lot out of the TV shows at the time. I don't know. It's really good. Like at its best, season one is honest. There's three seasons of the show, and I would say each of them are like pretty good. Like season one, probably the best. The Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin is as a villain throughout the first season. It's like it's honestly kind of a masterpiece, and that's probably gonna hint toward where I'm gonna rank it. But like, there's so much good stuff. Like, especially at the time, the only Daredevil we had, and I don't know much. I didn't know much about Daredevil at the time. The only Daredevil we had in terms of live action was the 2004 Ben Affleck leading one, which I thought was not great. I you know. I don't think that's like an uncommon opinion. It wasn't great. So like expectations were incredibly low for Daredevil, but like this kind of blew it out of the water. Like the story was incredible, the action was incredible. The characters, for the most part, I think I really don't have any complaints about, like, especially considering the first season of Daredevil. I don't really have any complaints about the show. Second season, I guess my only complaint about the show that it's kind of, I guess it's not nitpicky, but season 2 of Daredevil is really kind of like 2 seasons in itself. Like the first half focuses on the Punisher and the second half focuses on the Hand. I think the Hand is like kind of the worst thing that you can have in a show like this. I'll talk about it more with the Defenders, but the Hand is kind of a waste in the entirety of the Netflix MCU shows, and it kind of like it's one of the connective tissues for the show. It's really distracting for the show, but other than that, I mean, like, I'm excited to see Charlie Cox kind of come back in another series in a couple of years from now. I mean, hopefully it's good, but we'll see. But Daredevil it's incredible. It's just like, it's a show that you don't even have to like comic book characters and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to like be that invested into it to be like, oh, this is just a good show. It's not a good superhero. It's not just a good superhero show. It's a good show. So I think with that, we're gonna put that at S tier, to nobody's surprise, I'm sure. Jessica Jones is the second MCU Netflix show, and the first season is, in my opinion, kind of right on par with the first season of Daredevil. It tells a very kind of, I want to say disturbing, I guess a disturbing story, but a very real kind of disturbing story. I guess there's spoilers. Jessica Jones, like, the main villain in that is Kilgrave, and that is somebody who can control people by, just telling them to do things. Controls people with his voice. And he had basically stolen, I don't know how much time it was, but he had like basically kind of enslaved like Jessica Jones for a period of time. And that's kind of something that weighs very heavy on her character, once she is out of it. And he comes back, and it's like it's a story that kind of deals very heavy with trauma and like dealing with trauma. And I'm a sucker for big kind of character pieces, and Jessica Jones is very much a huge character piece. There's not a ton of action in the show. It's not that kind of show, but it does keep you on. It keeps you on edge, and it really connects you with the character very well. In terms of style, there's a lot of style here. It's a very noir. Is it noir? Noir? I think it's pronounced noir. Kind of detective noir kind of style to the show that I really like. The music is very jazzy. which I really liked. It's the first season is incredible. I can't really. There's been 3 seasons of the show. I don't remember much about the third season. I think the third season was fine. The second season focused on really focused on a character that I didn't care about at all, and it was a wishy-washy character, so I didn't really care for that. But I'm gonna try and judge the show for when it was at its best, and I think that's season 1. And that's another S. It's worth checking out if you haven't. It's a very stylized show. It's a very human story for a superhero show, and it's worth checking out. I think if you haven't seen that, it's one of the best Netflix shows. Definitely one of the best Netflix superhero shows, right up there with Daredevil. Luke Cage is next. Now Luke Cage is. The first half of season 1 is incredible. I think it's on par with the other two at the time. The villain was really good. Luke, I think it was Marshala Ali, was Cottonmouth was the villain for the first half of season 1, and he was it was incredible. He was really good. He had a really good dynamic with Luke Cage. He wasn't a guy. He was just I want to say kind of a Kingpin style villain in which, he was just rich and he had a lot of control. So it wasn't something that Luke Cage could punch his way out. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, they kill him off halfway through the season and replace him with just a superpower, super strong guy. And it just ends up being a fist fight at the end, which was kind of lame. But before that, I think I want to avoid saying black experience or something like that, but it is a good look into kind of black cultural touchstones as an African American. I think I can say it, so I'm going to say it. It's a good reflection of black culture, which I enjoyed. That's not something we saw a lot of at the time. There's not a lot of black superheroes even out right now that are mainlining things. So it's a good look into that. I think the music was good. It was a very stylized show, much like Jessica Jones or Daredevil at the time. So I mean, it's worth looking into. Mike Coulter does a really good job. I like the casting there. I think with a lot of these shows, you're gonna find that I'm gonna say the casting is really good. But with a lot of these shows, the issue is going to be the story, and I think this show suffers, especially in season 1 and the second half, from really poor storytelling. The second season of Luke Cage, I do not remember at all. I watched it. There was I think a Jamaican villain. I don't think it was that good. I don't think the story in season 2 is that good. So as I want to reflect it at its best, but if its best was a quarter, the first half of one season in a 2-season show, if I'm saying that 25% of the show was really good, then but not 75% of the show, I think I gotta put it at an A. If you're gonna watch it now, I would just say watch the first season, and maybe even cut it off after Cottonmouth dies. Because it's not really worth looking into afterwards. But I do think the first half of that first season kind of really carries a lot of goodwill for me. So I'm going to put it at an A. Next is Iron Fist. I didn't have any strong feelings either way about Iron Fist. I know a lot of people hated Iron Fist, and I wouldn't rewatch it. I'd rewatch most shows on here, at least a few episodes. I would rewatch none of Iron Fist. But I think it was just insultingly bland, if anything. I don't know if it was deliberately bad. It was just insultingly bland. I forget who plays Danny Rand Iron Fist, but it's I don't know, it's not, none of the casting really worked for me. I think he's okay. The actor, he looks okay. I guess that's the best I can say, but I think a lot of issues I have with Iron Fist is with the writing, and I don't think they really knew what they wanted to do with Danny Rand. A lot of the first season is just... So the story of Iron Fist, and I am paraphrasing, is he's the son of like some wealthy, business owners or whatever, some corporate, some wealthy corporate like people or whatever, and they're on a private jet. They're flying somewhere. That jet crashes, and he's the only survivor, and he lands somewhere in like, I don't know if it's like Tibet. I don't know where it is. I don't want to say China because I don't think that's right. But he lands in like he lives in a village, and it's a very mystical like village. He grows up, he trains, and like there's a dragon or whatever. People train to like fight this dragon, and like he beat the dragon, so now he's the Iron Fist, and he's got a fist that glows that's like really strong, or whatever. And that's fine. I just don't think they really did too much with it. Like you only see the literal Iron Fist like a handful of times throughout the whole show. And I get it's a TV show, the budget isn't as high, but it's like a lot of times they'll tease it. They'll be like, oh, he's going to do something with it. He like holds up his fist starts glowing, but he does nothing with it. It's just like empty threats. The action in the show wasn't that good. For a show that is supposed to be built on, martial arts, the martial arts didn't look that great. I think there was only like one scene where I was like, oh, this is a good fight scene, and it was when he's going through this gauntlet of villains. At one point, like midway through the season, I'm like, oh, it looks like they spent some time with this. There was some like artistic flair with these fights, but they don't really do anything with it. Afterwards, it's really just bland. It's a lot of business talk, and they're doing anything but fighting in a show with fist literally in the name. The villain wasn't good. The story was not good. And part of the reason I think the story was not good because it focused on this group called the Hand, if you remember from Daredevil, and it's just not a very interesting villain. I'll talk about it more with the next show. But Iron Fist didn't have a lot going for it. Season 2, I watched the first episode and I didn't finish. I just was not ready to be more insulted with the blandness of it. So I'm going to put Iron Fist at, I don't think it's like the worst show in the world. I'm going to put it at a D. Okay. Defenders. Defenders was supposed to be the Avengers of the Netflix MCU shows. It's where you get Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist teaming up to go against, some villain. And unfortunately, that villain is the Hand. The Hand, and I can finally get into it, is like, I feel like it's such a cliche to have a group like this. It's the old, an ancient organization who was always pulling the strings, but, behind, in the shadows or whatever. So it's an organization that's doing all this, shadowy stuff, and it's really, it's controlling everything. It's got its hand in every pot, but nobody knows it. It's just a villain group I've seen like too many times. It's kind of like Hydra, which is already in the MCU, so it's already happened. It's a lot like Hydra. It's a lot like what do you call it? The League of Assassins in DC. It's just like a very like, for a group that is supposed to be so like overwhelming and like everywhere, it's so bland. Like it's just like they can do anything because they are everything, I guess. And it's just not an interesting villainous group to go against. But that group is headed by Sigourney Weaver's character, who I forget the name of, but what a waste for Sigourney Weaver. Like, they kill her, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes in. And, like, she's a good actress, but, like, they give her nothing to do. And she brings a lot of gravitas to the role, but unfortunately her role is just to, like, be kind of like a failing leader. So, like, not a lot worked for me there. In terms of the heroes that are teaming up for the first time, it takes about, I think, 3 episodes for them all to like be in the same room. So it's a long time, and that makes sense. I mean, I guess you gotta establish all these characters for people who have not watched the previous shows. But like when they meet, it's like, it's not even like, I don't know, it doesn't feel big. It didn't have that level of gravitas of the Avengers. I think part of it is like all of these heroes have very similar skill sets. They're all brawlers, you know? They're all brawlers, so like one thing one character is doing is pretty much something another character could have done in terms of fighting. And in terms of action scenes for the show, like there's not there's hardly any good ones. I think the one action scene I will go back and rewatch was the one shot where Matt, Jessica, Luke, and Danny are kind of like meeting in like a corporate office for the first time, and it's shot kind of like a one shot, and that was really good. But that's the only action scene that I'm like, oh, this is really good. The other action scenes are just people punching each other. It's like they're all pretty much interchangeable. They're all brawlers, and it doesn't like it's not very creative. Um, yeah, there's just not a lot memorable about the show, and I rewatched it with a friend. Like it was this year, it was earlier this year, and I was like, all right, we got to watch this before we watch Daredevil season 3. Otherwise, you're not really gonna understand. But I was rewatching, I was like, man, this sucks. It's not good. Yeah, but it's the end of the hand, so that's the good news. We don't have to see any more of that. On a positive note, and this is not going to change my rating of the show, but on a positive note, there is a Jessica Jones, Kristen Ritter, Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox is really good in this show. Fortunately, it seems like those two are paired up a lot, and they worked really well together. One scene I will watch, it's not really an action scene, but it's a scene where Jessica Jones does not know Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and she thinks he's blind. But there's a scene out in New York City where Matt Murdock is trailing Jessica Jones down the street, down the sidewalk, a crowd of people. And Jessica Jones kind of like gets like a feeling that someone's following her. She's a PI, so like, you know, she's got good gut instincts, I would guess. But like, she like turns the tables on Matt, and like he loses track of her, and then she is tracking him. So it's kind of like, it's a scene worth checking out if you haven't seen it. That's probably the best scene in the show. I'll watch that all the time. It's just so shot, and it's like it's a good character kind of driven scene. Like, you know, it shows what they're good at, and like that, hey, like this person is just as good or whatever. Yeah. So Defenders, I'm gonna put at trash. It's not great. It's not good. It's pretty bad. It's kind of insulting, but like more insulting than Iron Fist. Like it's not just bland. It's just bad. I got nothing else to say about it. Punisher. I remember. I don't remember too well, but I remember being pretty satisfied with the first 2 seasons. So there's only 2 seasons, but it was. I don't know much about the Punisher, the character itself. I know he's an anti-hero and he kills bad guys. And he does a lot of killing of bad guys in his show, so that's pretty accurate to the show. There's some good character-driven moments. There's good character development. That's really good. So I don't know what else I have to say about it. I mean, it's the appropriate amount of violence. It's kind of like you root for him, you know, like, you know, you kind of rooting for him to kill some guys. There's some creative kills in there. There's like a scene where he's like grabs someone's head, and he's at a carousel, and like he throws the guy's head against broken glass and like drags it down. And that was like, you know, pretty gory, or I guess I don't know the word. Very extremely violent. So if you're looking for extreme violence, the Punisher's got you covered. But there's good character driven stuff in there too. Like I don't think I've ever felt bad watching the show. You know what I mean? Like I was never like, oh man, why am I watching this? Like I never had that moment. I don't think it excels to the level of like Jessica Jones or the Punisher, but it's good for what it is. It's good at what he does. So I'm gonna put that at an A. It's worth watching. I remember I was watching like the first 2 episodes with a friend earlier this year, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. This is actually pretty good, you know. So it's worth checking out. The Inhumans I haven't seen any of. Probably because you're aware. Or maybe you've never heard of it. It aired on ABC like not that long ago. I think it was like 2018, 2019, something like that. but it was like insultingly bad. I watched the trailer and I was like, oh man, this looks like trash. This looks terrible. And the original plan for the Inhumans, they were gonna have a movie for the Inhumans, but it like got dropped down to a TV show. And a part of that might be because they were, recently. I don't know when they acquired 20th Century Fox, but they probably were in talks for a while now. 20th Century Fox has had the rights to the X-Men. Disney bought 20th Century Fox, so now they have the rights to the X-Men. The Inhumans are very X-Men like. They're very similar. Like people with people who get exposed to a gas, who have the genetic potential to will get powers or they'll die. So it's very like a genetic thing. It's very similar to the X-Men. So they probably, that was going to be their answer to the X-Men before they had the X-Men. Since they got the rights to the X-Men, they were like, all right, we'll make it a TV show and maybe we'll wipe our hands of it. But it's so bad. It's like incredibly bad. I never watched an episode, so maybe I can't really judge. But I've seen the trailer and it looks like trash, and nobody's liked it. So I'm gonna put it at garbage. And a funny thing about the Inhumans, spoilers for Miss Marvel, is I believe in the comics Miss Marvel is an Inhuman. But at the end of Miss Marvel, it's kind of revealed that she is a mutant and not an Inhuman. The Inhumans literally exist in the MCU, but they were like, nah, let's not make her what she was in the comics. We'll make her a mutant and not an Inhuman. So I'm going to say Inhumans trash. Don't watch it. It's a waste of time, and they're probably not going to really do too much with it. Black Bolt was in... The actor who played Black Bolt in the Inhumans was in Multiverse of Madness. So if that means anything to you. That's probably as far as they'll go with the Inhumans. I don't see them going much further than that. All right, so that's all the shows that were not originally released on Disney Plus. Now we are at WandaVision. WandaVision, the first Disney Plus show, and it's a really interesting show. It centers around Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, and Vision. And it's a show that's really hard to explain. So I'm probably not going to try and explain it too well, but it does this thing where every week I think there's like 6 episodes. It'll jump through a different genre of sitcom. Man, it's such a hard show to explain. I really like WandaVision. I guess I can just give the answers. I mean, I'm spoiling stuff, so basically, Vision died in Infinity War, and he didn't come back in Endgame. And Wanda is dealing with a tremendous amount of grief from losing her lover, her would-be husband, the one she had planned to live her life with, and she has dealt with so much loss, losing her brother in Age of Ultron, and losing her parents at a young age. So this newest piece of grief kind of sets her to like manipulate a whole town into being like a sitcom, like a world that's always happy and no one ever really gets hurt. Everybody's good. Things always work out at the end. So she's created a reality where things are kind of just naturally go her way, and where she can be happy and Vision can exist, and she's got kids and stuff like that. It's a really good show. It's a creative show. It's a show that I mentioned before, every week it jumps between different levels, different kinds of sitcoms. So I know like the first 2 episodes, one was kind of like a Bewitched episode, and another was like an I Love Lucy kind of episode. If you don't know what those sitcoms are, I don't know, congratulations, I guess. But I grew up in a house with a roof, unrelated, but I grew up in a house. My parents were boomers, are boomers, and my mom like loved watching like the old sitcoms on TV and old westerns and stuff. So every morning I was like, before school, I was watching like an episode of I Love Lucy. So a lot of people didn't really like the first 2 episodes, is what I'm gathering. It was a little slow. But I loved it. I mean, it was like something I was very familiar with, and like something I guess I understood, I guess, that level of sitcom. but there was also kind of always a bit of mystery. It was kind of like a slow burn. They didn't like blow their load like in the first episode. They let the mystery kind of like slowly reveal every week, say, because you didn't know that it wasn't revealed that Wanda was doing this until like a couple of episodes in. So you were just kind of like along for the ride, and you're wondering, oh, what's going on? I have no idea. Here's this sitcom, this very lighthearted sitcom-y episodes that are coming every week with like little drops of like, oh, something's not right. And I think that worked like incredibly well. I think, and we're gonna see this the more I talk about these other Disney Plus shows. I think they're really good at setting up a good intrigue. Whether they hold it or not is a different question. But WandaVision is really good. It's a good character study, and it's a good like character study on grief. It's a very mature show that I think a lot of the other Disney Plus shows don't really have. It touches on topics that I did not expect from a Disney Marvel show, and for that, it's incredibly good. I'm gonna say it's S tier. It's really good. If you haven't checked it out, it's worth checking out. Maybe give it a few episodes, because it does get really good, and there's a bunch of scenes I rewatch from this all the time, and none of them are really action scenes. It's just like, if there's any fault with this show, I wish they had not given like her an out at the end with another villain that's in the show. But it's a really good show. It's a really good character study. They actually tried to do something with the character. Instead of just like, oh, here's a bad guy, you gotta fight him, in a sense, like she is the bad guy in this show, which is I think a very nuanced take for a Marvel show, or any Marvel property at the time. So it's really good. Check it out. That's an S. All right, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I didn't like. I felt it was kind of a chore to watch every week. I think the show didn't have a reason for existing. Basically, the plot is that, at the end of Endgame, old Captain America gives his shield to Sam Wilson, the Falcon, in the intent that, like, oh, he's Captain America now, but, Sam does not really want to take up that responsibility in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's a heavy mantle to have for him. So he like gives it to the government instead of just like keeping it and just being like, oh, maybe one day. He's like, I'm gonna give it to the government who like, tried to arrest, who had Captain America Steve Rogers as a fugitive for several years. I'm gonna give it to them because they'll know what to do with it and they won't abuse it. And he gives it to them and they abuse it, and like that's kind of how the story goes. It's really just a story of Sam kind of accepting that, like, oh, I need to be this next Captain America. But I just didn't seem like a necessary story, because you could have told me at the end of Endgame he was cool with it, or he was cool with being the new Captain America, and he took up that mantle. I didn't see the point of the story, because it basically ended where I thought we had already wrapped things up in Endgame. Like, it just didn't really serve a purpose. Bucky's in it. He's dealing with things. But I don't know. It's just like the action isn't very memorable. The villain is not very memorable. Actually, at all memorable. Actually, I don't even remember what her end game was. But there was just nothing. It was bland. It was incredibly bland. There was a couple of good memes in there, but other than that, there's not really worth anything. There's nothing really worth talking about here. I don't think it's garbage, but I do think it's D tier. I don't think there's. I will not rewatch this show, and there's no action that I ever want to see from the show. There's no moments where I'm like, oh, I need to see that again. Loki. I think a lot of people loved Loki. Unfortunately, I was not one of those people. Loki is basically in Endgame. He gets pulled out of his own like timeline or whatever. He gets the I want to say cosmic. He gets the Tesseract, which is like the Space Stone, and he escapes in 2012, the Avengers. So it's 2012 Loki, and there's like a time authority. I think it's like the TVA, the Time Variation Authority, or something like that. There's a group that exists outside of time to make sure time stays like intact, you know, and like there's nobody like going back and like changing important historical times, like cruxes to the timeline. So they're basically keeping watch over the timeline and making sure nothing that shouldn't happen happens. You know what I mean? The problem with that is that I had already seen that like twice. There's pretty much that same exact kind of group in a CW show called The Legends of Tomorrow. They have like the Time Bureau or something like that literally does the same thing. And another show called The Umbrella Academy, they have another time group that watches over the timeline, does pretty much the same thing. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, I've seen this literally. It's weird because it's kind of a high concept, or not a high concept, but like a unique concept of like somebody watching the timeline and keeping track of it. But it's been done to death so many times. And to be honest, I'm like incredibly sick of time travel because like we see it all the time now. It's like overstayed its welcome. So to have a show focus on time travel is like incredibly annoying to me. I'm just sick of time travel. If you have time travel in your show, like it's probably gonna go down the ladder for me. Outside of that, I mean, Tom Hiddleston is as good as he's ever been as Loki. I got no problems with Loki. Loki's a favorite villain, and it's a villain I like seeing. This is kind of arcs him to be more of a, I guess, anti-hero in this show. But I don't know, man. Like, if you're interested in, if time travel has not worn you out yet, then I think you'll like this show. But for me, like, I'm so sick of time travel. Like, I really am. It's like incredible how much time travel stuff we have gotten in the past couple of years. I gotta give it. I don't think it's as bad as Iron Fist or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm gonna give it a C. I just don't see any point in coming back to Loki. It's I don't know. There's just not enough good to outweigh like a very overdone concept. Yeah. What if? Also, I want to rank it right away. What If is pretty much an anthology series. I think it's like 6 episodes, and every episode it's like a different story. So they're not really connected until the end. They're connected, but they're not connected episodes. They're one-offs generally. And it's about like, it asks the question, what if? Like, what if, Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers? That's the first episode. And if you want the answer to that, it's pretty much everything that happened everything that happened in the first Captain America movie where Steve Rogers gets the serum happens when Peggy Carter gets the serum. So it's like the first episode, and it's a bad representation of the series, but it's also the first, like, their first impression. Like, nothing different happens when she has the serum. Like, it's the same story as the first Avenger movie. So, like, what was the point of that? You know what I mean? Like, what if? Well, the same thing happened. So, why did it matter? I guess. Some of the episodes are interesting. If there's, like, one episode that I would have to say is a highlight, it's the Doctor Strange episode. They do some good stuff in there. That's like, I think that's the only episode where I'm like, I might watch that again. There's an Eric Killmonger episode that's also pretty good. I'm kind of a sucker for that villain. I think he's one of the better villains in the MCU, so it's kind of nice to see more stuff related to Eric Killmonger. That's the villain in the first Black Panther movie. But I don't know. It's an animated show too, and I don't think the animation was anything to write home about. It seemed very, very basic. Like, it didn't seem to have much personality. It's like, I don't know. It's just very bland. I don't think it's a show worth watching. I think they were just trying to, like, establish the multiverse a little bit more, so that was kind of the purpose of the show existing. But I don't know. It's a show that's supposed to be a little more fun and I guess lighthearted at times, but it didn't really work for me. I'm gonna put it at a D2. Gosh darn it! I would not watch this show. It's it's just so freaking boring most of the times. I don't know what to tell you. It's not great. Like it's not visually stunning to look at. A lot of the stories are meh. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. That's it. Hawkeye is the first time Jeremy Renner got any kind of attention ever in the MCU. Hawkeye is a Christmas show. Takes place in New York during Christmas time, and Kate Bishop, more or less the new Hawkeye. You know, this is what establishes her as a character in the MCU, and I think she gets into some trouble, and Jeremy Renner's there to help out with his I can't believe I'm doing this again. I didn't really want to do this again attitude. I like this show. Christmas, anything set in like a Christmas kind of atmosphere is like, honestly, I'm incredibly biased towards that time, so I'm gonna favor it like a lot. I think Haley Steinfeld, I believe is her name, whoever plays Kate Bishop, she does incredibly well. As Kate Bishop, Jeremy Renner is pretty good in the show too. Like I don't know why a lot of people kind of hate on Hawkeye. To be honest with you, like I get it. He just shoots bows and arrows, and you know, in a place where there's like literally wizards and like people flying around in metal suits. I get like it's impractical, but like, you know, it's a comic book. It's a comic book character. Like things are allowed to be impractical, as long as they're executed well. And I think Jeremy Renner does well in the role. I think the plot is pretty good. I would rewatch Hawkeye if it's Christmas time. I got my lights up, you know. I would turn it on 100%. I'd watch it again. Yeah, it's pretty good. My only negative with the show is, and this is kind of a big spoiler for Hawkeye, it reintroduces Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin from Daredevil. Whether it's the same Kingpin or not, I'm uncertain. But I didn't really like the way they reintroduced him. They reintroduced him in like the last 2 episodes, and he gets into a fight with Kate Bishop's Hawkeye, and he's like a cartoon. Like all the realism in Daredevil is kind of lost here. He like gets hit by a car and it sends him flying, and he's just okay afterwards. He literally gets hit with an arrow that Hawkeye was like, never use this arrow. He gets hit point blank with this arrow, and he like lives, and he's walking around afterwards, and he's like straight up a cartoon. I get in in the comic books and in other iterations, he's like this big, bulky, like dude. He's like 99% muscle or something like that. So he can take a lot of hits in the comics, but like the established Kingpin in Daredevil was not like immortal. You know what I mean? He couldn't get ran over by a car and just be fine, you know, ready to fight afterwards. So that's like my only negative with the show. But I think if you're in for like a good Christmas MCU show, it's a really good show. I'm gonna put it at gosh darn, it's a good B. I don't think it's as good. Ooh. Now I'm gonna put it at, I guess I have to put it at an A. No, do I want to go back? Because I feel like it's better than Luke Cage. I'm gonna put it at an A. I'm gonna put it at an A. I've changed my mind. I'm gonna put it at an A. It's not like the best of the best of the best. It's definitely not up there with Jessica Jones, WandaVision, or gosh darn Daredevil, but it's pretty good. And I think it's better than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter. Yeah, we're sticking with that. We're doing that. Next is Moon Knight. Moon Knight was a show I was really excited to see because it seemed like it was going to do things differently than other MCU TV shows, and it started off really well. I loved the first episode of Moon Knight. I loved it, and kind of what I learned from Moon Knight is what I like about a show is like, especially, I mean, a series is like you got to have good intrigue. And it had good intrigue in the first episode, like this mystery of like, oh, what's going on with, I can't remember Moon Knight's name. I want to say like Slattery, but that's like the character from Iron Man. I can't remember his name. Moon Knight's got like 3 personalities. His like main, I don't know, his like very nervous, anxious personality is like oh man, I sleepwalk and I wake up other places and my gosh darn jaw is displaced. It's what's going on? Is he crazy or is he actually like having this? Is what's happening to him real? I guess is the question. And it's good intrigue for the first episode that they completely like answer in the second episode. Um, so that the intrigue there is like almost immediately lost. And then it just becomes a show where it's like, oh, we gotta hunt down the bad guy. We gotta learn to work together and stuff like that. So it's like it loses its uniqueness, pretty much immediately. So I don't know. I wish I feel like very sad about Moon Knight because I was like, oh man, this is a character that like I don't know too much. Like we're really digging deep into the wells where I don't even know much about the characters. Like the only thing I knew about Moon Knight before this was that he was in like Spider-Man Web of Shadows. He was like an ally potentially, but I don't know much about him. I didn't know much about him. So Mark Spector, that was his name, Mark Spector. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just like the action was not good, like at all. I don't. There was no memorable action. Okay, well, nope, that's not true. I think the first real action scene in the first episode with like the ice cream or the cake truck or whatever, and they're going downhill and stuff. Like that was a good action scene. I would watch if I were you. I would watch just the first episode because then you won't be disappointed by the end. But like it doesn't really go anywhere. I again I like the character. I like Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight. I just wish he was in a better story. The story's just not that interesting. So I'm gonna put this one at a D too. I wish I could say it was higher, but the story is just so like with a lot of these shows, especially going forward with the MCU, like the past phase or year, it seems a lot of them have like we got the character down, but we don't got a good story to put them in. It's like it's just a very by the numbers story, which I find with a lot of these shows and movies as of late in the MCU. So that's disappointing. But whatever. We'll move on. Next is Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is let's see, Kamala Khan. She's a relatively new character in terms of like the comics. She was introduced around the same time as I think Miles Morales, or like shortly after Miles Morales. But I say this literally every time I mention either Miles Morales or Kamala Khan. I always pair them up, and I'm always like, it's crazy because not only are these characters um, incredibly new, like they're like maybe 10 years old in terms of like comic history. Uh, they're relatively new. They are like sub heroes of other heroes, Spider Man and Captain Marvel, and they're people of color. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it's insane how popular they are. Like a hero that was first put in the page maybe like 10 years ago has her own show on on Disney Plus, and Miles Morales has like a movie and a video game. Like it's incredible, and it's been in TV shows. It's like incredible for like these very very new heroes to have that kind of like clout. Anyways, so I feel like I got to mention that every time. So Miss Marvel is a good character. The things I liked about the show is it really kind of explores, and I believe it's Pakistani. Pakistani. I hope I'm not wrong. I believe she's Pakistani. She's definitely Muslim or of Gotta step away for a second. One sec. All right. Sorry about that. I had a thing come up, but that thing has been done. So, anyways, we're on Miss Marvel. Things I liked about the show, I think it explores kind of, and a lot of people, I don't get why, a lot of people see this as kind of like a detriment, but the show explores kind of Muslim culture and Pakistani culture that, like, I can tell you as, like, an American who's been American for 20 plus years, I have not been exposed to at all. So it's interesting to see that kind of culture, the Muslim culture, the Muslim church, mosque kind of culture, and like the Muslim American experience. It was interesting to see. I really liked her family, like as characters. I really liked the actress who played Kamala Khan. I think she did really well. Um, the issue I have with the show is the same as most of the other MCU shows. Is like I don't think she's in a good story. I don't think there's a good plot there. And I'm not really gonna go over the plot there. You guys can watch it for yourself if you want to. But guess what? There's time travel involved in the plot, so that's my favorite element of any gosh darn show ever. That's not been done to death. Time travel. But yeah, there are good things about the show. And it's mostly it's character piece. It's the character drama stuff, the character building stuff, and it's like the exploration of kind of Muslim culture and Muslim American culture. That stuff is really good. And her family is really good. Stylistically, oh god, I forgot about this. Holy, that's like the thing. The trailers would have you believe the show is very like stylized in terms of how it's shot and stuff like that, and that is true for just literally the first episode, and they sprinkle it in every now and then in like the last two episodes or something like that. But there are these shots. If you watch the trailer for the show, I feel like most of the stylized shots where it's like, she's like drawn on the screen and like, like you're seeing the world through her eyes and you're seeing the world through her imagination. They do a lot of that in the first episode, and I was like, oh, that's cool. They're doing some creative stuff. They're actually trying to, differentiate yourself from the same old like grayscale MCU stuff that we're like so used to seeing. They do that for the first episode, and I feel like they only did it to put it in a trailer. So that way, like, you think the show is maybe more than what it is, in terms of like how it is stylistically. But it's something they drop like almost immediately, which really sucks. I mean, I get it's a TV show. It's got Disney dollars behind it though, so I can't imagine like if they wanted to do more, they could have done more. If they wanted to keep it up, they could have. It would have made the show more expensive, but they could have. Yeah, I just kind of feel insulted by it. I guess like you sold me something You said it was one thing, but in reality, it was something else. I didn't like the kind of like dual-handed nature of it or whatever. Like it felt kind of shady that they had done that. But I do like the character. I look forward. The way they set it up at the end is like, she's gonna be in the next Captain Marvel movie. I think it's called The Marvels, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in that. So I think again a lot of these shows are good at setting up the characters. They just do not put them in a good story. That's like the only thing with this show. I wish Miss Marvel was better in terms of that. And I will say, like, I think Miss Marvel is more directed at teenagers or like younger folks than I. You're Gen Z, whoever's in high school right now and whoever's in like middle school. It's probably more directed to them than it is to me. And I'll take that into consideration. I could see like some people liking this. When I was back in my day, we had shows like Young Justice that tackled difficult topics all the time and did not, and still managed to be for kids, quote unquote, for kids. So I don't think they had to like shorthand as much as they did. I think they could have gone deeper into some more complex storytelling than what they did. It was fine. It was fun. I wish I could say I liked it more. I liked it more than Moon Knight. So that's something. I'll put it at a C. I'll put it at a C. I don't think I would watch it again. But there are some like character moments that were really good. I might look up some clips from there. I could see myself doing that. And I'm excited to see what they do with her going forward. Hopefully it's putting her in a better story. That'd be awesome. I Am Groot. I don't think I need to talk about this too much. It's a series of shorts, and it's clearly directed at babies. I think it's trash. It's not a show. It's just a series of shorts. I totally forgot about this when I was making this like tier list. I was like, oh, I Am Groot did come out like a month ago, not even that long ago. It's just a series of shorts, and it's very like, I hate to say for babies. I mean, it's cute. It's supposed to be cute, and it nails being cute. Unfortunately, I don't care about any of that stuff, and it wasn't made for me. And, it's probably trash for me, but it's probably like C tier for a lot of the people who actually liked it. You know what I mean? It was supposed to be cute. It was not supposed to be a story-driven thing, and I understand that, but that's not for me, and I watched it, and I probably just shouldn't have watched it, but I'm going to put it at trash. That's fair. And we're going to round out the list with She-Hulk. She-Hulk is a gosh darn landmine. I've done a video on my channel about like the first episode of She-Hulk. People are like, I don't know. I think people are insane sometimes. Like some people, I feel like, I don't know if this was true with Miss Marvel. I guess it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know if this was true with Miss Marvel or I feel like WandaVision is not in the same boat or Hawkeye is in the same boat, but Miss Marvel is kind of a female lead-driven show where it's just her. You know what I mean? But I feel like people are very, very quick to attack a female lead-driven show. And that's not to say that the show is like great or anything, you know what I mean? But it's just like people are just so quick to like pounce on it that I don't think they are with other shows. Like She-Hulk is not over. I think there's a few more episodes left. I don't know how many episodes. It was episode 7 yesterday that I watched. I don't know how many more episodes are left, but so my opinion can change. But I think She-Hulk is fine. I mean, it's trying to be a comedy, and I've laughed, so it's definitely succeeded at making me laugh. The thing it wanted to do. And there's been episodes where I'm like, this didn't really work for me. But there's been episodes like the last episode 7, I thought was really good, and it was probably because it was a character driven thing. Yeah, it was exploring the character. And that's stuff I love. There's been like episode 1 I've really liked. I think episode 4 I also really liked. And a lot of those, again, are character exploring episodes. What people do not like about She-Hulk is that she is quote unquote stronger than the Hulk, which is not true. Even the show like shows you that Hulk is stronger, and it shouldn't matter. By the way, it really shouldn't matter. Like I don't care. I wouldn't care if she is stronger than Hulk, like literally, but she's not. Like she throws a rock and it goes like 30 meters or something like that. Hulk throws a rock into space. So I mean, like clearly Hulk is stronger. People are upset that like, and I'll do the Cliff Notes version of it. She basically says She-Hulk gets Bruce's blood into her and she turns into a Hulk, much like Abomination did in The Incredible Hulk. But she's able to control her Hulk form like immediately, whereas Hulk it took several like decades for him to like figure this out. And a lot of and the reasoning she gives for it is that like she deals with anger kind of all the time, and like her career as a woman, she's a lawyer, and like there's truth to this that like hopefully this gets better with time. But not too long ago, like your grandparents were living in an age where it was like women are secretaries at best in an office environment and not like lawyers. Certainly, you know what I mean. They take notes or whatever back in the 60s or 50s or whatever. They weren't like lawyers. They certainly weren't good lawyers. You know what I mean. So there is a transitionary period that hopefully ends very soon. But like there are people out there. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in like actual jobs, not actual jobs, but you know what I mean, like in the private sector, where you have people who are very clearly dismissive of you because you don't fit what they think your position would call for. And it's a very true thing. Like I basically people are upset that she had said like she deals with that kind of anger with having to always have to deal with this constantly. So she deals with her anger all the time, but people are interpreting it as She-Hulk is stronger because she's a woman versus She-Hulk has better anger management because she's a woman. And I think there's like truth, like it's obviously a case by case thing. Like a lot of her anger comes from like how society treats women, and some people might, some women might have bad reactions to that, and fair enough. But like they might not be able to control that anger as much as as other people do. She's able to control it. Like she was always able to control her anger. So when she is, imbued with this Hulk power, she's able to control it because she's always been able to control her anger. Whereas Bruce has always been like, Bruce always calls his anger the other guy. And I think there was always the other guy, for Bruce, even before he had the Hulk stuff. Like, I just don't think he dealt with anger. So, like, for him, it was always another guy because it was something he'd never dealt with. He just buried, and that was it. Whereas Jen is, always dealing with it, or she has dealt with it. She's come to terms with it, so she's able to control it. So it's not like, I don't know. Like, that's why she's able to control it. It's not because, like, woman better. You know what I mean? Like, there are people out there who have good anger management, man or woman, who could have the Hulk stuff and not, like, be a rage monster. You know what I mean? It's just like Bruce Banner happened to have bad anger management before he was the Hulk, and it carried over while he was the Hulk. Yeah, so that's never been an issue with me for the show. Outside of that, I'm going to try and not talk too much on that, because although I do love talking about it, because I do like the sense of superiority, the false sense of superiority it gives me, I do feel like it'd be a disservice for me not to bring that up. It's a show that's probably not for everybody. It's got a very specific kind of comedy that, like, comedy is subjective, so you might not like it, and that's fair. But, like, don't make it about because, like, they made it like a woman's better, because that's not even the case. She is not as strong as the Hulk, like, confirmed. Like, so I don't know why people rail on that, other than to, like, grift and get some extra hate views. And I'm not that guy, unfortunately. I could be rich, but I'm not. I love standing up for fictional women. Oh man, it really gets my gears turning. Other than that, I think She-Hulk is fine. I think the earlier episodes rely too much on cameos, which is kind of a symptom of the MCU as it is currently. But I think the episodes where it's not a cameo fest are the better episodes. Hopefully it wraps up and it's good. I could see myself watching some of like the highlight episodes again. I think it's fine. I do like the character of Jennifer Walters. People are calling her a Mary Sue, which I don't think is the case. I think if you watch the show, you'll realize, oh no, she's not a Mary Sue. Like she's got issues. She's got character flaws. I don't know. Check it out. Check it out if you haven't already. I think it's worth watching. And I would say as it is currently, I would say I like it better than Loki and Miss Marvel. So I'm gonna put it at a B. It's fine. It's not like Shakespeare or anything like that, but for what it is, trying to be a comedy, it's not very big on action or anything like that, but it's not that kind of show. So for what it is, I think it is good, and it's kind of my cup of tea. I can watch an episode or two of She-Hulk and be fine with it. Yeah, I think that's a good ranking. I think so. I hope a lot of people are mad that I put She-Hulk above Loki, because Loki sucks. It doesn't suck, but it sucks. You know what I mean? I think that's fair. Yeah, so that's about my rankings. Oh shoot, I got 8 followers. Oh, sick. Sick. I couldn't even see that until now. Oh, you can't see it either, so that's good. Yeah, that's my ranking. And I guess I do feel like I want to mention the current state of the MCU. I don't think it's good. The current state of the MCU. If Thor, then again, I did like Multiverse of Madness. I did not like Thor: Love and Thunder. And Thor: Love and Thunder is kind of the symptom that I'm talking about. It's like the need to always, always, always be funny and have a comedic kind of tone to everything. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm a big character guy. Not everything needs to be funny. You can have dramatic moments. You don't need to undercut them with a laugh or a half-witted joke that doesn't land. Yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping going forward. Like, my biggest worry is that like the next Daredevil show will be a reimagining of Daredevil, which is kind of what they're alluding to. Born Again, Daredevil Born Again. Even though it is Charlie Cox, I hope they keep the seriousness of the Netflix Daredevil show, because you had it. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm really hoping they don't try and like, make it some kind of like comedy fest. Like, I think you can like keep the show relatively grounded and it'd be good. And this is something I would say about most shows on here. I'm hoping they can kind of like keep tones like from not always being a comedy. And to be fair, they have done that. Not as of late. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a very kind of serious show. WandaVision is an outlier, so it's probably not even worth mentioning. It was serious when it needed to be serious. It didn't undercut everything with a joke. Can't really say the same about the more recent movies and shows. So that's what I'm worried about, but I think it'll be, I don't know. I hope it'll be fine. I mean, I hope if they do stumble, they find their way back before they kill it. Because the MCU is like kind of it is like, I mean, not to give undue gravitas, but it is like a historical kind of achievement for movies. There's never been anything like this, and a lot of people are trying to emulate it, and they haven't been able to do it. So I'm hoping they don't ruin it. But yeah, that's about it. This is my ranking. I think this is fair. I was worried I was gonna put too many things in B tier when I started, like being up, and not like give a lot of things trash or D ratings. But gosh darn it, I did it. I freaking went ahead and I put things in D and trash without even overly thinking about it. So that's good. But that's my rankings. Feel free to disagree if you want. You're wrong, but you can disagree. Why not? If you want to leave your own rankings and stuff in the comments, feel free to. If you feel I got something wrong, I didn't. But if you do feel I got something wrong, feel free to mention it in the comments. Shoot, why not? I want to thank you guys for watching. It's been a real short stream today. It was either to do this or edit a video. I didn't really want to edit today. So, have a good rest of your Friday. Thank you guys for tuning in if you tuned in on the stream. I'm probably going to edit this video down and make a regular YouTube about it. YouTube video about it. But for now, this is where we're at. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in another video. If you want to leave a like after this, subscribe, you can. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you want to, please do. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.